Welcome to another edition of the Cooker's Corner, and today I got a guest, a special guest. He's a Vietnam veteran. He used to own record stores. He was a DJ, a lead singer in several bands, a professional wrestler, a commentator with Coach John Heath, a newscaster, and more. My good friend for nearly 40 years, literally 40 years.
Yeah, that's a
Mr.
long
Jay Goodley. First met him in 1986.
I'll tell you what, it was great meeting you. This was a kid that had so much desire, and we had one thing in common. And we talked about it right away from the get-go, as far back in our past as we went. We loved professional wrestling. It was almost, I'll say an almost obsession, but it certainly was. And with his enthusiasm, I said, this guy's gonna be all right. This guy is going to make it in the sport of professional wrestling.
Well, it helped that we didn't get paid much at the sportatorium and we lived close to each other so we could split the gas money. But yeah, that's where I started.
Getting paid, if we go into that scenario, people would never believe the little money that people that start off in professional wrestling, even though they're on television, make.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's an interesting story, but not a really happy one. You know what I mean?
Well, I was happy because we were part of the business, something we loved. And my first match was against Sean Royal in 1986, and that's when I first met you. You were the ring announcer because Gordon Slayton screwed you out of the commentator job by then. And that's a whole nother story. But I got paid $25, and if I worked twice, an extra 15. So that meant we were eating special on the way home on those double days.
That would be good. If you want to talk about pay, if you want to get that right out of the way. Okay, John Heath and I, when we had United States Class Wrestling, we were seen nationally. We were seen in Canada. We were seen in the Caribbean. We were seen in Mexico. That show went everywhere. And we had the sum total of $50 on our check for all that exposure at that time. And ring announcing on Championship Wrestling from Florida that went to 50 states, the Caribbean, Canada, Mexico, paid the same. But you know what? I love the sport of professional wrestling so much, I would have done it for free. How about you, Bob?
Sometimes we did. I thought I had it bad, $25, but I only had to work 5 minutes. You had to do the whole shows.
Yeah.
Probably had to sit in on production meetings. All they did to me was say, go to the ring, you're losing.
I'm glad you brought that up because Soley had production, like it was called, pre-show production and all that, and he was spoon-fed all this information, and guys would come in, we're gonna come in and do this and blah, blah, blah. John Heath and I never had 1 minute of show prep, not 1 minute. We were given a script for United States Class Wrestling, and we'd follow the script, and the script would say, all right, the Freebirds are gonna come in right now, and would walk Blackjack Mulligan, and we go, oh shit. Here we go again. But we were always on. We were always expecting it because Dave Togi, who was the producer at that time, and I'm not bad mouthing him, but
You can if you want.
Oh yeah.
Does he deserve to be bad mouth?
Yes, he does.
Mouth away.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. Togi really didn't help us a bit. He was the producer, and I think intentionally he probably made our show as miserable as possible, but John and I loved working together. We had a good time, and we would always go to Pepe's after the filming all day because we'd be in actually 3 shows. We did part of Championship Wrestling from Florida, we did United States Class, and John and I went over to University of South Florida and filmed Championship Wrestling from the Bahamas, which was a hoot because my ex-wife and I went to, we were in Freeport, and we walked in a restaurant, and they went, oh, look who's here, and all that, and we turned around, we were looking for, some rock star or something and all that, and they grabbed us, put us down at the table, and bought us free drinks and food all night, and I'm going, I'm thinking, what, God, I didn't know the show was that popular, but hey, we'll take it.
I went to the Bahamas and they never did that for me. That place was a dump.
Oh,
Did you ever
the
wrestle
locker-
in the arena?
yeah.
Well, the arena, you look, if you lay down in the arena,
the kids
look up,
would look in from up top.
there was a cage thing up there.
Yeah.
There was bottles up above, and they used to throw bottles in the
Right, and part of it was a dirt floor, if you'll remember.
Oh, the dress, you had to dress in the hotel and get brought over.
And then it was a shower for two.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to touch it though. You'd come out with every disease in America. I mean, not America, but in the world.
Yeah, and the water was kind of dirty, so it was a pleasant place to be.
It's like Orlando. The water smelled like, you know what? Not good.
No, I'd say egg-like. Let's just say egg-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, rotten egg-like.
Some of those people in the Bahamas are probably used to that. Oh, wait.
But they were a good crowd.
Yeah.
They always were a good pop in the Bahamas. I didn't go there that much, but when I did go, it was fun.
I got smacked by one of the fans there once.
You didn't.
Yeah, me and Jerry Gray were wrestling Mike Graham and Kevin Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin threw me out of the ring, and I turned around and a fan smacked me in the face, and I went after him, and Kevin grabbed me. He goes, "No, Bobby, we'll start a riot." And he threw me back in the ring.
Yeah,
So
that was probably very good advice.
Yeah, well,
Kevin did.
I didn't have no choice. He grabbed me by the hair and threw me back in the ring.
Kevin had good advice. Kevin was he was a real ring smart man. I really liked Kevin.
Well, plus I didn't want to get beat up by a 12-year-old. I didn't say how old the fan was.
Well, great memories though. Great memories. That's the thing. With wrestling, you never did it for the money. You did it for making memories, and those are the things that you still remember today. The camaraderie with everybody you worked with, and making memories. I wish that I would have had somebody with a movie camera, like every step of the way. That would have been good, because there was so much stuff going on that was not recorded, but was so much fun going on. And
Although a little bit of money would have been nice. That's a line.
That's what we got.
That's a line from Almost Famous.
but we got a little bit of money, so
Well, that's true. A little bit more. Let's put it that way.
we wouldn't have been in The Color of Money too. That's remake.
Well,
Yeah, we wouldn't have gone like that.
plus, Paul Newman's dead. So,
There you go.
was he in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul
Had to make-
Newman,
just had to
Tom
make
Cruise,
sure- had to
Tom
make sure.
Cruise, and Paul Newman.
Oh, look at this. I spilled water all over myself.
There you go. Not
Reminds
the
me of a
first
rat
time.
I was with once. So, oh, my mouth is wet. Like, anyways, Jay.
So what do you want to talk about, Bob?
You've had an illustrious life. Like I said, you're a Vietnam veteran. I remember you used to own was a record? No,
King
music
of Hearts
store.
Music, yeah.
Right, music store.
A lot of electric and acoustic guitars, PA systems.
I used to help you do the DJ stuff to make extra money on the weekends sometimes. Just carry the equipment, help set it up, and that was always fun. Just,
That was fun. Yeah, we did weddings, but they always came up to you for the autographs, and that's
there
what-
was always plenty of girls to look at and have inappropriate thoughts about. I won't go as to how old they were, but they were there.
But you expressed that on the car rides going home.
Yeah, I explained to
And
you
I got
all-
an earphone. I go, "Will you shut up, please?"
I explained all the times that we could have went to jail, and I held back. We didn't, so
It's a good thing. It's a good thing that the mind police were not
Right,
around
right.
to monitor our thoughts.
But when you think about having a camera on us back in those days, to document some of the things that happened in wrestling, probably better we didn't have a camera.
Well, I'll tell you, I love that year that we rented the warehouse out on the bypass. That was a great year. Bob and I had a warehouse with a ring. You got it from Tony Marino, I believe.
Right. He had a school in Tampa, and he shut it down. I just asked him out of the blue, "Hey, what are you gonna do with the ring?"
He
said,
was
"Okay,
a
you wanna
nice
use it?"
guy
I love
too.
Tony.
He was fabulous.
I didn't like training with him because he trained different than Malenko.
Yeah.
Malenko trains you on how it's going to be when the bell rings in real wrestling. Tony trains you how it's going to be in real wrestling.
That's right. That's right. But we had so many guys show up and just get in the ring with us, and we worked, and it was sometimes 102, 103 degrees in there, no air conditioning. And I remember working with Rex in there, and he was an up-and-comer, and he was really, really talented. And Paul Yoder, he came down and worked with us. Pardon me?
Rick Ryder.
Oh, Rick Ryder was fabulous.
I don't remember if Robbie
good.
was ever with us for that.
Robbie came in at the end. I never worked with Robbie back then. I got to work with Robbie in the independent circuit, but
You mean at that show where Rex King gave you a concussion?
Yeah, that was kind of a blindsided. I didn't think this was going to happen night, and
Well, he had a bull rope. By the way, that was right over here at the Limit Bay High School.
Oh,
right
yeah.
down the road from where we are.
oh yeah, and yeah, Rex hit me so hard, he knocked me out. I didn't see stars, I saw galaxies, and when I woke up, I was being dragged around the ring by a bull rope, and I woke up, and I said, "Oh, where am I? Hey, got to go through this," and I was a little perturbed with Rex that particular. But that happens in wrestling. You get hit with stuff. You know, I mean, you get hit with stuff all the time. But that was kind of a blindsided. I love the man. I'm really.
We went to his funeral.
We became good friends after that, but we were not friends. That match was a little stiff.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you say a little stiff?
Yeah, but there was a picture in the newspaper story about that with him dragging you around, and Rex still had his sunglasses on.
Yeah.
Classic picture.
That was a classic picture. Yeah, I was really glad to be a part of it.
But yeah, Rex became a really good friend, and we went to his funeral, and we won't get into that because, well, it was sad that there was a funeral, but there was some humor going on in that eulogy. I like to tell people that story. Remember
Well,
that?
go on with
Well,
that.
what?
Yeah. That was.
Oh no, the religious type will get mad at me. I don't want to get.
Nah, let it
Remember
fly.
the eulogy? You're sitting next to me. Frankie Reyes is sitting next to. On the other side is Adam, and then Cuban Assassin and Paula Fantasy was sitting there, and the preacher was saying something like Rex King is now with God, and he's in a tag team match, and he's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and he's making the hot tag, and he's finally, and I started laughing.
And we were like, I was biting on my
Yeah.
lip. That
I was laughing.
funny.
I started laughing. I acted like I was crying, and Frankie Reyes is going, "Stop it, Bob! Stop it!" And to this day, out of the what do you call it? The corner of your eye, the Cuban looked down and he goes, "Damn it, Bob! Cut it out!" That's making everybody laugh. It was the dumbest eulogy of all time, and we love Rex. Dumb eulogy though.
Dumb eulogy. I'm going to send a thank you out for Rex's funeral to somebody right now, because there was a professional wrestler who was a star that I didn't even know that he knew Rex, and he sent in a few $1,000s to cover Rex's
Wow.
expenses, and I'll send a big thank you out now to Chris Jericho. Chris worked with Rex early in his career, I believe, maybe in Oregon, wherever Rex was.
Really?
And when I heard that, I was like stunned. And Chris evidently, I've never met him, but evidently is a very fine person. And thank you, Chris, for sending the money in for that. That was a fabulous thing to do.
He does that a lot.
Well,
Not
from
to
what I've
say
heard, he's
pick on Rex,
he's a damn good guy, and he sure respects the business. That's what I like about it. And he was trained up in Canada, as you know.
With Stu Hart.
Stu Hart, right? He was in the dungeon, and he trained hard, and he wrestled hard. He's still wrestling in his 50s.
Yeah.
Plus, he's got a hell of a voice with the band.
Oh, yeah.
Fozzy. They're great.
Yeah, and he has that Jericho cruise every year, which they just had, might be a month ago, and they always draw a good crowd.
Yeah, that was good. He's a great guy. But we had some good times.
Yeah, I remember, Robarts Arena was the coach's spot mainly. I mean, he did Punta Gorda and he did Fort Myers.
But that was
Robarts
his heart.
was the
I mean,
deal, yeah.
yeah, because he was a football coach at Cardinal Mooney, undefeated, 1971 champions, and he was well known as a football coach. But he loved promoting Sarasota, and I'll tell you what, we had 5,000 seated, 500 standing, and there was always a turn-away crowd, and Coach was responsible for that, and he was a fabulous man to work with. He and I went probably 100,000 miles together in his old Mercury Cougar, and we had a good time on the road. Now, I'll tell you a story about Coach John Heath. He was like the man that all the kids came to the high school when they had problems, and Coach could solve their problems. He was wonderful. He came out with the very, very best advice that anybody could. But when he was about to get sick, when he felt a cold coming on, he would sit in that Cougar next to me eating raw garlic. And they were some rough rides, though we did wash them down with Guinness beer. And
That'd be even more.
but Guinness beer and raw garlic did not make for Jay very pleasant rides with the coach, but he was the best. He was the best. He was a great guy to work with. He trained me, though I didn't really work that much, but he would train me. No fun training with him, but he sure showed you what was possible as a wrestler.
I always loved having commentary by the coach on matches I was in. But he wouldn't just call it moves, he'd put you over as well.
Oh yeah, he did put people over. He loved the way you worked, by the way. When you came in, you were a rookie. This man is going to be a fine wrestler, you know. And it was.
I was shocked at how many people didn't show up at the coach's funeral when you think about, how much respect he had.
The only one that showed up was Mike Graham.
I don't understand.
And I don't understand that either. Where was Dusty? That's what I was saying. And Coach put everybody over, and I agree with you. That was certainly disrespectful for the wrestling world not to show up.
But when you think about Buddy Cope passing away a few years ago, wasn't a whole lot of wrestlers there. It was you, me, Cuban Assassin. I think Ricky Santana was there, Dory, Steve Kern, Brian Blair. I can't think of anybody else offhand.
Well, he did have a pretty good collection and all that. Buddy should have been world champion, to me. I think he had the skills. I think he had the mic skills and the ring skills to be a world champion, but he never made it. And
Well, the plane crash didn't help.
no, it didn't help, but I don't know. He's just somebody that I really respected, and he was the real deal.
Yeah, he used to be at our Legends lunches every time we had him, and now he's not. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of those on the list, unfortunately.
A lot of those on the list. Tony Marino, I remember the last time he was there, he grabbed me like we were arm wrestling. And if you've ever tried to arm wrestle Tony Marino, it is like, let's say, a feudal thing. I had my loser t-shirt on, and he put me down pretty easy.
One of the things Tony would do when he trained with you, he'd make you lock up with whoever you're locking up with, and like you're really wrestling, like push back and forth as hard as you could. And he'd also do the amateur wrestling where you get on your knee, what they call it the referee's position. Mm-hmm. And he would take you over and do whatever he wanted to you, and he'd get on his knees, and you couldn't move him. Both hands, you couldn't move him.
Oh no, he was.
I used to hate
what,
that.
Mr. Olympia or something like that.
I didn't sign up for real wrestling. What was that all about? But again, I love Tony. I remember we'd go out to eat after training, him and a bunch of the other guys.
Right.
And we were at a Shoney's, I think it was called back then. Maybe it was a Shambles. Remember those?
Oh, I don't remember those.
Oh.
No.
But we're all sitting there eating, and we're talking like you normally would about wrestling, about what we were doing, what we were hoping to do. And some guy in a booth behind us said something like, "Oh, you guys are wrestlers, huh? Well, that stuff's fake." Well, that was all Tony needed to hear. He was on his feet faster than I saw him move. He's like, "You think it's fake, but we're all holding him back. Come on, Tony, in a restaurant." He's like the Tasmanian devil, he'd listen to like that classical music in the car driving, right. Calm him down. But I remember that to this day. He's like, "You think it's fake?" He was up on his feet. And
Yeah, I hear that fake stuff all the time. And let me tell you what, folks, hitting that ring sometime is not the most pleasurable thing you've ever done.
you can tell the story about Scott McGee and fake.
Oh, you tell that.
You know it better than I do.
Well,
you were doing a story on wrestling, right?
Well, here's the deal. Ron Jackson, my good friend, we were the sports department of ABC 40. It was Channel 40 then, it's Channel 7, ABC 7 now. And Ron was the ring announcer in Sarasota. So this particular Saturday, Ron got laryngitis, and he called me up. He said, "Jay, can you help me out?" I said, "Sure, Ron, what do you need?" He goes, "I'm supposed to ring announce tonight." And it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He says, "Can you go to Robarts, put a suit on and ring announce?" And I said, "Sure." So I get my suit on, I drive up, meet with Coach Heath. He gives me the card. I wasn't allowed in the locker rooms, and he wrote down the weights, destinations from everybody. So I went in there and welcomed everybody, and the place popped. It was wonderful, because they probably knew me from Channel 7. They weren't popping for me, they were popping for wrestling. And the atmosphere there was so great, and it was electric. And I'm going, man, I like this. And I did the first match, announced that, and it was just great. And got the feedback and all that. And wow, now I've got the fever. I'm getting all this feedback from 5,500 people. Come back the next match, announce it, and I'm getting a little better, feeling a little more confident, getting into my role as a ring announcer. Anyway, do the main event, and that place pops. I forget who was in it, but it was just a great night. Well, then Eddie called Ron and said to Ron, hey, we like the way this guy announces. Can we keep him?
Can we keep him?
Yeah. And Ron said, oh, sure. So Ron called me and told me that. I didn't know what he meant. Eddie's plane was in Venice. He had a hangar in Venice for his private plane. So he called my music store, King of Hearts, one day. And he said, Jay, how'd you like to take a flight with me?
Oh, gee.
And I said, sure.
I've heard those horror stories.
Oh, well, no, it was almost pretty nice. So
He was only partly sober?
Pardon me?
He was only sober a little bit?
No, he was sober.
Oh.
But we went to I went to Venice Airport, parked my car, met with Eddie, shook his hand, got in the plane, we took off, and we were flying around. We went over Boca Grande, and we flew over Punta Gorda and all that. And he offered me the job as ring announcer because Bruce Tharp was going off to law school at the time. So Bruce was a really fine ring announcer, and his dad Chet worked in the office and all that stuff. So I accepted it, and I said, yeah, I'd love to be a ring announcer, but I'd still like to wrestle. Eddie only had one glass eye and one eye, and he looked at me and he gave me that look like, he goes, well, I want you as my ring announcer. And I just murmured to him, okay, but don't forget that I can wrestle. And he goes like that, and he gave me that Eddie Graham look again, which was like, walking in a dark room and seeing Dracula, you kind of went, ooh, did I say something wrong? No, 10-year-old little kid.
Now you have to prove you can wrestle.
Yeah, well, so anyway, they arranged this, Ron and Coach Heath and Eddie arranged this thing where I would go in as a sports reporter from Channel 40 and find out what it was like to be in there with a professional wrestler. Well, I started wrestling at 11. I went through Brandywine High School in Wilmington, Delaware as a wrestler until I had a dislocated elbow. And that kind of ended things, but then kept wrestling in the Army and kept worked out with wrestlers. So I said, oh yeah, I'll go in there, and what do I do? And he said, well, just go in there, Eddie said, and wrestle. The first guy you're gonna wrestle, Denny Brown. And I said, Denny Brown's the world's junior heavyweight champion.
Coincidentally enough, he's gonna be on the show soon.
Oh, is he? Well, anyway, so I go in with Denny, and he throws me around. He ragdolls me and I'm actually bigger than Denny, but he throws me around and all that. We go 10 minutes and wow, that was a hell of a workout. So in walks Scott McGee, who had just taken the Florida heavyweight belt from Harley Race. Yeah. So in walks Scott, and he shakes my hand, he goes, you don't belong here. And I looked him in the eye and I said, we'll see. Wrong thing to say. So Scott now mauls me for 10 more minutes now. He could not pin me. Folks, if you look back on the tape, he could not pin me. He could not hold me down for a 3 count, and he was pissed. So at the end of the match, it's allegedly over. He grabs me, gets behind. He says, "Let me show you this." Stands on my ankle, turns it, and breaks my ankle.
Nice.
Now I'm on television with a broken ankle. So I do the best close you've ever seen. I was saying, the professional wrestler is the most awesome athlete that I've ever been in contact with. You know, this is Jay Goodley with a broken ankle signing off. Chris Berman picked it up on ESPN, and he said, "Look at this dumb commentator, this wrestling sports reporter. He's going in and wrestling professional wrestlers." So he put it on. I made my one day on ESPN with Chris Berman, and it showed him breaking my ankle. And, you know, then I walked around with that soft cast for a while. And then I eventually healed up, and I learned some intel about that particular incident. And what did you hear about that?
I don't remember at this point. Have you made up with Scott since then, right? He's been to the
Oh,
Legends
Scott and I
Lunch.
are fine. He's apologized to me 100 times. I love Scott. He's a great guy. But what did the intel tell you about?
I don't remember.
Oh, yes, you do.
No,
He was directed to do that.
oh,
Yes.
from Gordon or Mike Graham? Mike Graham? Eddie Graham?
Ah,
oh, because you said.
Because I told him, remember,
Right,
I could
right.
still wrestle.
Yeah.
You never, and I learned that was a never, you never went against the grain with Eddie Graham. You never, if he told you something, it was like written in the scriptures. That's the way it was. You did not negate him, you did not question him. Eddie was the boss. Even if you had a brilliant idea, you kind of pass it through the chain of command, and it wasn't to Eddie. You know, you go to Duke and say something to him. But anyway, I learned then, nope, you do what Eddie says, anything. So anyway, I came back, ring announced for the next 3 years on television, and did the show with John Heath on the United States class.
Eddie wasn't known for sending hitmen to beat people up in the sportatorium. Once in a while, Bob Roop.
Well, I heard the great story. They had a guy, a football player from the University of South Florida, who would come in and say, "Oh, you guys, this is all fake," and all that. He's a real big guy, about 275, big kid, about 20 years old. And Eddie kind of got sick of him, and Eddie went to him after a match. He goes, "Hey, you're a big guy. You're really a true athlete." He said, "Why don't you come in here and just get in with Bob Roop, who was the Florida heavyweight champ at the time, and wrestle him and just see how you can do against a professional wrestler. You're an athlete." So anyway, Eddie is setting him up. So he comes back and he's got his gear on and he's got boots, like combat boots or something, and he comes in there. And Bob Roop is nowhere to be seen. And Eddie and Mike are standing there, and the guys are, "Where is he? Is he scared of me or something? Where is the guy? You know, the Florida heavyweight champ. I want to wrestle him." And he's all piss and vinegar. Well, Gordon Nelson is dressed up as a janitor. He's got a pair of, now Gordon Nelson, I'm just going to say this to you folks. There's terms in wrestling. One is shooter, meaning the real deal. He can go with anybody. He can wrestle a jiu-jitsu guy or a karate guy. This is a shooter. This is a guy that can hold his own against any wrestler or anybody. Gordon was also known, he could break a bone or two when he needed to. Gordon was a badass, okay? And he's dressed up in this janitor thing. And Eddie said to the college kid, "Hey, we don't want you to come here and waste your time. We want you to wrestle somebody." And the janitor used to wrestle a little bit. And the guy said, "I don't want to wrestle some old man. I want to wrestle Bob Roop." And all the guy, "Well, Bob's not here. Evidently he's missed his flight or something. So hold on." He goes, "Bill, old Bill." And he goes, "Yes, Mr. Graham." And he had a mop in his hand. And he said, Did you bring your wrestling gear? He goes, yes, sir. I always have my wrestling gear here. And he set him up and he said, okay, get dressed and I want you to just get in the ring with the guy. And the college kid said, well, this isn't going to be any fun. I'll waste that old man and all that. Well, here comes Gordon Nelson in his sling, in his wrestling boots and all. And he gets in the ring with the kid. And he literally tortures the kid for about 5 minutes and makes him give up, lets him up, takes him down again, hurts him some more, causes him beaucoup amount of pain. And Eddie says, okay, Bill, go back and sweep the floor again, mop it up. Okay, make sure it's clean. And the guy goes, wow. And Eddie goes, look, if our janitor can do this to you, just think of what the Florida heavyweight champion, you don't even want to get in there. And then Eddie said, from then on, when the kid came, he would applaud and he'd go, that's my man, these guys are great. And he put the wrestlers over. But that's how Eddie, it was all thing. He did it with me because I negated him a little bit. He just had his way of, he was like the Don Corleone of professional wrestling.
Yeah, well, that's back when they were protecting the business and they didn't just let any Tom, Dick, Head, and Harry show up and be in it.
Oh, yeah.
And if they tried, they discouraged it, like they even did that with Hulk Hogan.
Excuse
me.
Well,
but he came back. I don't know whatever happened to him. He had potential, but.
Well, I met Terry when he was playing in the band Ruckus and I was playing in the band Kickstand. These are rock and roll bands fans. And we had the same manager, Earl Tennant, out of Venice. And I'd go to Hawk and I'd say, man, you got the body and the look for a professional wrestler, man. I said, he goes, I keep going there and they keep pushing me away. And Eddie Graham tells me, we don't need any weightlifters around here. We need guys that are athletes and can work. So anyway.
Even though one of Hulk's biggest heroes was a weightlifter named Superstar Billy Graham.
Well, yeah, but this is what he told him.
Yeah, I know.
He was so muscled up and bulked out. Eddie rejected him. So finally, Eddie handed him over to Hiro Matsuda to train. And he trained with Matsuda a while, and Matsuda broke his leg. And
Allegedly.
Allegedly, Hiro Matsuda. That was another very serious guy that you didn't want to go against or give him a bad look. That was a guy, he was, I believe, a 64 Olympian, wasn't he, for Japan?
You watch all the footage of him training Lex Luger in the beginning, and Ron Simmons, and
doing
Dewey Forte.
500 squats, the Hindu squats.
Sit-ups where they're hitting him with boards and stuff.
Right, oh yeah.
I liked Hiro, though. He was always cool.
Oh, he was cool, but man.
Didn't you have a story about him? Wasn't he, like, you said he gave you a verbal lash?
Oh, I do have a Hiro Matsuda.
Oh, is it over the Coco Beware?
Coco Beware. Coco Beware and I had a gimmick we did on assorted nights. And Percy Pringle, Bill Mooney, who was the
Paul Bearer for
The Undertaker. Anyway, he's a great guy. He had Norville Austin and Coco Beware, the PYTs, the Pretty Young Things, as his tag team. Well, Coco and I had a gimmick that we did town to town. And he would come in the ring and he would have this Michael Jackson glove on, and he would put it on my shoulder when I was trying to announce the match. And I would take it and hand it back to him, and he'd come back to me and he'd put it on the shoulder, and I'd take it and I'd fling it to the ground. I'd get a pop out of the crowd, and then he'd get really mad at me and he'd push me like that, and then I would push him and knock him on his ass, and the crowd would pop, and then I'd get out of the ring real fast, and I go, like that. Well, we're at Robarts, and John Heath normally is running the show. Well, so Coco, and he goes, hey, you want to do our thing? Yeah, let's do this. This is my hometown crowd, get a big pop. So we go in there, Coco does that, we go through all the things, I knock him on his ass, he comes around the ring, and he actually, at one juncture, pulls my sport coat over and beats me a couple times. It was hurt like hell. with his forearm. James Ware was the real deal too. And anyway, the crowd pops, and man, I'm selling it, and the match is over. They beat the Young Bloods. It's a real good match, and all that stuff. And at the end, somebody comes up to me. I think it was Harry, the timekeeper. He says, Hiro Matsuda wants to talk to you and Coco Ware. And I went, oh shit, here it comes. So he takes us in the babyface locker room. He sits us down. He chewed us out in half Japanese, half American, where I didn't understand. I understand that this man had a red face and he was screaming and, I'm gonna do that again! No, wrestler hit, announcer ever hit wrestler! And we sat there like little schoolboys, Coco and I, and just sat there like, you know, and that was quite an experience, and we just couldn't wait till he left the locker room at that time. That was quite an experience.
You know, you were talking about being a manager. You were the legitimate manager of the one and only Billy Jack Haynes. Whatever happened to that guy?
Nice setup, Bob. Yeah, that was my downfall in championship wrestling from Florida. I traveled.
One of many, or the
Well, that was one. Yeah, I did a lot of. Hey, admitted I did a lot of screw ups, but with Billy Jack Haynes, he asked me, "Can you manage my career down here? Set up personal appearances, T-shirts, blah blah. Can you be my manager?" And I said, "Okay," because I had J. Goodley Entertainment. I had my agency going, so I was an agent for disc jockeys and live bands and all kinds of people. Well, so we went to my attorney, the late Jack Domer's office. We signed the contracts, and the press was there. They took pictures. They put us in the Venice Gondolier, and it was a legit contract for me to manage him. Big mistake, because then, with Eddie passed away, Mike had taken over the company and asked Billy, I want you as a 5% owner, and I'm going to do a contract for you and blah, blah, blah. And Billy said, well, I'm going to have my agent read it. Oh, big mistake. So I read it, and I'm a contract guy. I always did every gig that I ever did, or that my bands, DJs ever did. Hey, we set up with contracts. This was like the most amateur, the worst contract. It didn't cover Billy's ass at all. And we went in with a meeting with Mike, and I said, I can't allow him to do this. Well, I'm still working as a commentator and a ring announcer for Mike. So essentially I'm working against the company by rejecting this. And Billy, let me think how this worked out. Oh yeah, Billy said to me, hey Jay, I got a call from Hulk Hogan in New York. WWF wants me to wrestle up there. You can sue me if you want. And he takes off. So I get fired from United States Class Wrestling and Championship Wrestling from Florida. Billy goes to New York and wrestles in WrestleMania 3 in a full Nelson match against Hercules Hernandez.
I remember that.
And then I got fired because I wouldn't allow him to sign a contract. That wasn't very smart on my part, Bob. I had a lot of screw-ups. I didn't have a lot of savvy because I really didn't know the professional wrestling business. I was learning it like you, like everybody that goes along, but I wasn't smart enough to learn it quick enough to keep my job there. So
yeah, you're talking about you used to do DJ stuff, but you had your own business in Venice, J. Goodley Entertainment. I remember many times going to your office and you talking me off the ledge during my marital problems and various parts of my life. But you used to also manage bands and the DJs and.
Oh yeah, that's what I did for a living.
Yeah. But I forgot about that part. Besides just doing the DJ, you were the leader of all the other DJs.
Well, yeah, did quite a few, did over 1,000 weddings.
And you had those
myself.
awesome pictures of the Beatles hanging on the wall. You still got those?
My daughter has them in her
Oh,
house. I
okay.
gave them to her when I sold the business. Because she said, when you die, I want you to leave the beautiful portraits of the Beatles.
And I wanted those tiger statues on your shelf. Remember, I used to always say, "You got to leave me that Ron Jackson bobblehead."
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, Ron Jackson and them, I used to watch Channel 40 News every night because of Tracy Douglas, the Wonder
Oh.
Girl. I
Oh,
had to
yeah.
throw that in there.
Who didn't? You
Yeah,
know? Even if they thought we sucked,
Yeah.
she was beautiful. And
I mean, I didn't care about the sports or any of that crap, but I wanted to watch
yeah.
Tracy Douglas.
Wow.
Now, I used to watch the sports just because they would give the results for the wrestling, too.
Yeah, well, Andy Hardy.
Yeah, he did that
Andy
too.
Hardy did that on Tuesday nights,
Yeah.
right after Ford Homer Hesterly. My manager of my store, Nick Ferlicci of King of Hearts Music, Nick and I would close up King of Hearts Music every Tuesday. Every Tuesday we'd leave early, and at that time there was no I-75, and we'd drive 41 all the way to Tampa. We had third row ringside, 3 seats, and we would take Johnny Walker from the Fish Camp. We would take all kinds of guests as our third person every week, but we'd go there every time there was a wrestling match at Fort Homer Hesterly. Nick Ferlicci and I were there, and that was great memories driving up there, always closing the store up early, and couldn't wait to get there. And one day we brought King of Hearts t-shirts in extra large, and Mike and Steve Kern wore them to the ring.
Wow.
And we were so stoked, and they got bloodied up because they kept them on. I forget who they were, but it was a bloody match, and they got blood all over them. And we were, Nick and I were so pleased.
Probably Mr. Saito and Mr. Saito.
I don't know who it was, but they bloodied up the t-shirts, and we were happy because they were wearing them.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was good. Also, I just want to say, you were trained by who I believe was the best trainer ever in professional wrestling, Larry Simon, aka the Great Malenko. And you could tell he was, because Dean and Joe Malenko were in WC. They were phenomenal wrestlers, and I had so much. I never met Mr. Malenko myself. Mark Marrow, who you know as Johnny B. Bad, came to my house in Nokomis on Leachy Road, knocked on my door, and, "Hey Mark, how you doing?" And I was a racquetball pro in Venice at that time, and Mark was working out at the gym there.
Yeah, the waiting room.
Yeah, well.
Or was that before the waiting room?
But this is before that,
Oh.
yeah. And Mark came and he said, "I want you to train me wrestling." And I said, "Mark," I said, "I've got very limited skills. I'd say a brawler at best, you know, I'd say, but I know the best trainer in Florida is Larry Simon, the Great Malenko, and he's got a school." So I said, Bob Cook's there, and a lot of guys are up there, and you should pursue him. He will teach you fundamentals of professional wrestling a lot better. I can teach you how to brawl, but you probably already know how to do that. And Mark was like...
He was a boxer, too.
He was a boxer. He was a fabulous athlete. I mean, Mark was just... And he had a good look. He had a real good... He was a born baby face. I mean, you know, back then. And he looked just great. So he went up there. My biggest regret was not going up there with him, because I would have loved to have the honor of being trained by the Great Malenko, because everybody, Fred Ott and Rex King, everybody just said he was the very best, not only on a wrestling level, but on a personal level. He could help you with your problems. He was like dad to everybody. And his 2 sons are sure fine individuals. And he turned out, let's just say for definition of terms, he turned out a real fine product.
Yeah, I called him the answer man.
Oh, yeah.
He was a guy that no matter how I was feeling on any given day, no matter what problems I were having, was having, personal, financial, whatever, when I got done talking to him, I felt like I could take on the world.
Yeah, he was like John.
Kind of you that way for me as well.
Well, I tried.
And we're talking about Michael here, so you know.
Yeah.
If I would have listened to some of your advice more, I wouldn't probably be in a lot of the situations I've been in and in. You know?
I tried my best. You know, what can I
Well,
say?
Dad, not everybody can. Kids have got to learn their. Yeah,
Yeah.
but now you got your significant other now, Randy, is a beautiful woman. She owns the Pilates studio.
Pilates with Randy, and you know, that's why I work out every day, because
Gotta keep
when you've got your girlfriend, your best friend, the person you're seeing with all the time, who is the most physical, fit, vivacious person I've ever met in my life, I got to kind of stay in shape to kind of keep up with her, because she works 6 days a week, loves her Pilates with Randy, which is in Venice, Florida, by the way, a little plug there. And she's a hard worker and probably the most fit person her age in the United States. And I'll say that. I said it, I meant it, I'm here to represent it right here, right now.
You know, it's funny you were talking about Nick, and I always rip Nick because Nick had an opportunity to play with the boss, Bruce Springsteen, and he turned it down.
He turned it down because he had blown his ears out, and it was painful for him to hear any kind of volume. Nick, of course, I feel for him because he had the talent to be a national player, but you know, it was an injury. It's like when a great quarterback suffers a broken femur or something like that. It's the same situation to that. He had the tools, he had the skills. Hell, he was on television in New Jersey when he was 14 years old. And he was also Springsteen's favorite guitarist. So I've got a Nick story too, but
yeah, I love Nick, he's great.
It's a terrible situation, but you know, he worked through it, opened up, he worked for me at King of Hearts, and he opened up Troll Music, and, you know, did the best he could, but he's a guy that really had a monstrous talent and didn't get a chance to show it off. But that's the way it goes with folks at times. And
Troll Music, that may have an all new meaning nowadays with the internet.
Well, yeah, but it was named because the troll, they were under the bridge, so they named it Troll because it was under a bridge and all that stuff.
So where that dipshit?
Oh, I've got a great story about Bob Cook.
Oh, no.
Okay. We used to go in WAM when we were in the independent circuit, when we broke away from NWA, we would go into WAMR radio with Larry Rhodes and Tom Edmondson as DJs. They were the morning jocks. They had a real good rating in the morning, had a good share and all that. So we would go in there. One morning we went in there and we started a riot. Remember, we started a riot in the studio and throwing stuff around and like fighting and that was great. So I said, oh, they'll never ask us back. Well, they got this DJ called Buddy Baker, and he worked for him, and he was
sounds like a race car driver.
Yeah, it does sound like that, but I think his last name was Baker. His name was Buddy. Let's just call him DJ Buddy. Well, he came in and he wanted to get involved with wrestling because he was a wrestling fan. So I said, well, we've got matches in about 2 weeks in Venice. I'm going to let you talk to Bob Cook. And Bob came in and he actually said, well, you can get in the ring and do a few spots.
I think he was supposed to be the special referee or something, wasn't he?
Well,
a cage match?
I don't know what his role was, but he was supposed to turn on you. That was the deal. And anyway, so Buddy's in there. This is the main event, and Buddy's in, and he's well known in Venice, so he's a real big guy, and he walks in there. And I remember Bob put him up against the turnbuckle, and you hit him a couple times, and he popped back like that, and he wouldn't sell it. So You got real pissed off, scooped him up, ran across the ring and gave him a flying body slam, and he couldn't get up. And he just laid there, and they had to carry him off. And that was one of the funniest, most righteous things that I have ever seen. That was great, Cooker. You really,
I remember
you showed him about the fakeness of.
I remember him in the dressing room saying that he wanted to do all this stuff, and I just looked at him and said, "You're not going to do none of that stuff."
Well, yeah, you don't quite come here and call the shots, pal. That was fun.
And I'm not a tough guy, so that must mean he was definitely not a tough guy.
Yeah. But the independent circuit was really a lot more fun than the big time.
Most definitely.
I love being Larry Love, trashing the crowd. That was
those shows that we used to do in Venice were just a blast.
yeah.
And we had that one show with that woman that one time where she had been kidnapped in a van and left for dead in Georgia, right? And we did a benefit for her.
Yeah.
I don't know what her name was, and her family wouldn't show up to the show because they didn't respect wrestling. And I got on the microphone and I ragged on the family. I said, all these guys are donating their time to raise money. I said, if it was up to me, that family wouldn't get a dime. Whatever I did, and I don't know if they ever did get the money.
That was good. And I remember, and I'm not going to name any names, but there was a martial arts teacher. Remember this story?
That,
yeah, a martial arts teacher in Venice who was a very good teacher, had a big reputation, and he did an exhibition. They did an exhibition which was very, very good. And then you came out the next match, you were a heel, of course, and trashed the crowd and did all this stuff. And I remember my cousin, Bob, came in from Delaware and all that, and I got him front row seats, and where I was sitting, I was ring announcing that night. And he came up, and you were doing something despicable, and he thought he would get in your way, and you literally were like a 5-ton truck, and you ran over him. You hit him like that, knocked him on his ass, he rolled, and you just walked right over him, and I thought that was the greatest thing you can call. This is fake, you can call that, but Bob just laid a martial arts instructor, and I have all the respect for every martial art there is, especially jiu-jitsu, but you laid him on his ass, and that's where he belonged, because he should have never stuck his nose in there. That was a great.
Thank God he was drinking a little bit before the show.
Yeah.
I beat up a few fans over the years, but they were always drunk, so that was a help. That was a help.
Yeah, and a lot of times their skirts were too tight to retaliate. I do remember that. Was
yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
So do you have any stories that you want to bring up?
I can't think of anything else. You put me on the spot. I got a lot of stories, but they involve hotel rooms and people that probably shouldn't be talked about.
I love working. Remember we'd work with Bugsy.
Oh, Bugsy was
and
awesome.
Brian Blair, and of course your friend Jerry Gray.
Yeah, Jerry. I talked to him on the phone just the other day.
Oh yeah, they were just great
His
guys.
life is miserable. He works at Walmart. He said he hates it.
Well, at least he's still alive. And
That's true.
He's overcome a lot of stuff, And,
he's struggling.
But I'll tell you what, I'll never regret my time, even though I didn't make diddly squat money. As I say, I would have been involved in professional wrestling for free because it was so much fun. And since I was 5 years old and watching it on a little TV like this with my grandfather and just digging Gorgeous George and just loving his antics and laughing with my grandfather. And I fell in love with it when I was 5 years old. You fell in love with it when you were a little kid too.
Yeah.
And if you love it and you want to be in there, you'll sacrifice, you'll work hard, you'll train hard, you'll get in there and do the best you can. Cooker was one of the greatest wrestlers, one of the greatest workers that I've ever seen. He could work with everybody. Me, not so much. I tend to be a brawler and I wasn't that smooth. But this right here is one of the smoothest guys to ever lace up his Terry Funk boots. And I'm glad you asked me on this podcast today, Bob. Thank you.
Terry Funk boots, that's a good one, because he gave me those boots I always wore.
Oh, I know.
But you mentioned Gorgeous George. Remember I used to do that airport limo service.
Oh, yeah.
And I picked an old lady up one time, taking her wherever I was. And she had been at a Gorgeous George show when she was a kid, and he threw the bobby pins. He used to do the Georgie pins.
She had a
and she
Georgie
caught
pin.
one. And I told her, and I don't remember at this point what her answer was. I just remember the story. And I know I told her, I said, do you still have that? Because in my mind, I'm thinking eBay. No, I don't remember if she said she still had it. But as she told me the story, it was like, she was just happy to tell the story like it was a great part of her life.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's epic because they were made of, I think, 14 karat gold.
I don't know, but in wrestling, you never know.
Yeah, that's what I think they were. They're worth like $200 a piece just as gold. So it's really good.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for having me, Bob.
I
I'm
appreciate
glad to
you
be
coming.
here.
Again, to me, the best time of my life was wrestling. But the best part of that is meeting people that I've become lifelong friends with you, even though I almost screwed that up years ago. We won't get into that.
No, we won't get into that.
Yeah, it worked out okay. But next Saturday right here at the Twisted Wrestling Studios, we got our show, Old School Rivalries. I'm teaming up with Pablo Marquez, and we're taking on Johnny Walker and the Golden Boy Jimmy. I can't remember his name. I must have a concussion. But the point is, and we got some great sponsors. I'm getting flustered because we're at the end of the show. But we got some great sponsors. The Lohman Law Firm, Big Screen Cream Productions. I didn't get these things.
Debbie Malenko is flying in from the West Coast to be here.
No, she's not.
She's not?
No.
Cancel that, please. Cancel that order. Anyway, she was here for the last one. It's always good to see
And
Debbie.
we got Timothy Kendrick Music as a sponsor. And we
Got
can't
a
do
law
it.
firm.
Yeah, right there, it said it. The
Right.
Lohman Law Firm.
Lohman
And we
Law.
can't do that without sponsors. They're really important. I think people who run wrestling shows know that as an
Hey.
answer.
And these Joe Saraceno, Bob Cook, they're keeping professional wrestling alive locally instead of having the big dog running everything. That is great. That is music to my ears. That should be a great show. I'll be here for the next one. But you guys, this will be packed here in Englewood, Florida, right here.
And we also do training on Sundays right here in this ring, where we got a guy named Ricky Rush, who's a great talent who comes in and helps out. And he's training his cousin Tony and different things. We got Pablo Marquez going to be here next
Wow.
Saturday for the show, and he's also going to be here for training. We got Denny Brown coming up.
Wow.
Denny Brown's going to be here tomorrow.
Well,
To train.
thank Denny for taking it easy on me
Oh,
because he threw me around like a rag doll, but he took it pretty easy on me.
But I do appreciate you coming. Seriously, it means a lot.
Glad to be here, Bob. I'll come anytime, and looking forward when I can ring announce for you guys and just put the guys over, as they say in the big
It's like
time.
a family reunion when we do this show.
Absolutely.
Well, anyways, we're going to hope that you tune in next time, because we definitely hope you tuned in this time. The Cooker's Corner is out.